Bob Wankel's back on a Friday as we preview the weekend between the Phillies and the Braves. Now, Bob, we know the Phillies swept this series the first time they played. This will be the first time they go on the road, but this Braves team has struggled. They played a mash unit of Nationals and struggled against that team. So, I don't know. I don't think we think this Brave team's a dumpster fire or a mess, but are you a little surprised that they've got out in the gate so slow?
Yeah, I mean, I was certainly surprised by the result over the weekend at Citizens Bank Park. I mean, Braves rebound, they do get 2 out of 3 against the Nationals, this week. And you saw guys like Ronald Acuna kind of come to life a little bit. Ozzie Albies is off to a really tough start through 6 games. But, the top 3 hitters in the Braves lineup last weekend, I believe, were combined 2 for 44. Don't expect that this time around.
Nope.
This is a fired-up Atlanta team. I think that they have a lot of pride. They've won a lot of games the last 3 years, and I am sure that they did not like how their season started when they were in Philadelphia last weekend.
Obviously, Philadelphia. Look, the one thing with Philly, we've talked about it a few times here, but I don't think we can hammer it home enough. You tweeted out the bullpen numbers, taking out the Velazquez inning and a third, if you will. Totally has reshaped the way you think about this team, right? I mean, I think any fan is looking at this team differently, certainly, strictly on that bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The bullpen has been markedly better. They had an 11-plus ERA through the first 6 games of the 2020 season. You turn around and they're in the mid-3s here after 6 games this season. You take out the Velazquez implosion in the 7th inning on Tuesday night, and it's a sub-2 ERA. So, the strikeouts are up. They're really limiting hard contact from opposing hitters, especially late in the game with their main guys like Alvarado and Neris and Brogdon. So that's really the big thing that we've seen here so far to this point. And to be honest with you, I don't know how well this bullpen is going to continue to perform, but I believe in this bullpen. I do believe that, you might not see an elite level performance consistently here. I think we've talked about it in the past. I don't know that this is a top 5 bullpen, but I do believe a top 5 bullpen in the National League, I should say. But I do believe when you look at the back end and the upside that they have in the late innings, that this is going to be a consistently quality bullpen.
Yeah, now, you mentioned the numbers that you tweeted out from last year to this year. I mean, I thought the numbers that they gave up last year, the walks and the hits, their whip must have been about 9 last year through the first 6 games. It was bonkers. That, to me, is another huge thing is the walks are down. I mean, I don't know what the team whip is, but that's a huge thing to be able to throw. So you take that Velazquez inning out. He had 4 walks in a third of an inning. They have been making quality pitches. They're not walking guys. Alvarado got into trouble the one game, but other than that, these guys pound the strike zone.
Yeah, you know what, though? I will say this, and again, we're talking about a revamped bullpen. It's a completely different unit, but you go back and look at the 2020 Phillies, right? They were 19-13 at home last year. You know what they were on the road? They were 9-19 on the road. And again, abbreviated season, small samples, all that stuff. But we're talking about a team that was a nightmare away from Citizens Bank Park last year. And so, again, I know it's early in the season. You would expect the Braves to bounce back in this series after being swept, but it's a huge series for the Phillies. These games all count. They're all important early on.
Yep.
We're talking about a division where the Phillies are, coming into this thing, arguably the 3rd or 4th best team. These games matter. And you consider the way that they played on the road a season ago, this series matters. And so I'm really curious to see what they do this weekend.
Bob, you bring up a great point in that they play their first 7 games against NL East teams. If they can really stretch something out here early, you're playing from ahead instead of from bunched together or from behind right off the bat. And we saw, look, I don't want to say like this is the 93 Phillies, but they got off to that start that no one thought, and they blasted out of the gates, and they never looked behind. And I contend a guy like Archie Bradley, man, to me, we talked about it on Monday, but having these new guys, and it feels like this team has more personality all of a sudden, and that was a difference maker for one of the few good teams this town has seen in the last 30 years.
Yeah, he definitely adds that element. And I mean, you look at the 93 Phillies. I mean, you brought them up. I believe they were 17-5 in April that year. And they sort
of. Did you know that off the top of your head, or you got a computer in front of you?
We host that podcast actually. And this came up the other day and we were having a conversation about it. So we were able to, I was able to pluck that right off the top of my head. But that was a team that actually faltered a little bit when you got into like August or the beginning of September. They started to struggle, and they were able to build themselves that cushion early on. And when you look at this division, right? Like if you go back 3 weeks ago, we're talking about, well, I think the Braves might be a 92 or 93 win team. What are the Phillies? 85 or 86. So you're slotting the Phillies like 6 or 7 games behind the Braves in these projections. Well, guess what? If you go down to Atlanta this weekend and you take another 2 out of 3, and then you build yourself all of a sudden a handful of games, of a lead, well, that might change the dynamics, because the rest of the way, the Braves have to be those 6 or 7 games better than you in order to leapfrog you. And I mean, it's so critical for the Phillies at the very least not to dig themselves that early season hole. And hopefully here, the decent performance this weekend, they'll have kind of built themselves that cushion.
Hey, they're 3 games up on Atlanta early. So if you can get 2 out of 3 here, it gives you another game early on that makes you say, if we're good enough, you're going to have to figure out a way to make up 4 games on us here. Rhys Hoskins, 3 for 5, a home run, 2 doubles. He's one of 4 guys to have, extra base hits. Kruk was one of those guys. Hoskins plays first base. I don't love him in the 2-hole, but so far he's telling me to shut my pie hole. He's doing a good job there. 10 for 24, 417, 4 RBIs, 6 runs scored. One of the things is I like that production driving those guys in rather than him standing on second base. But, hey, I'll let it go until then. Is Hoskins, have they figured something out with him?
Well, you know what the interesting thing is about Rhys Hoskins, right? You said the reason you like him the 2-hole is because he works walks and he gets on base. Well, he's getting on base, but he's doing it because he's putting the ball in play. He's been a little bit more aggressive in terms of going up there and trying to make contact and do damage. 7 extra base hits in 6 games. And, the amazing thing is, like last year when he wasn't going well, you still said, hey, he's walking. And fans hated it because he's supposed to be one of the heavy hitters in the middle of that lineup. He hasn't had a single walk yet this season, which is remarkable when you look at his past performance.
See, Bob, this is the Hoskins that I like in the 4-5 spot because he's driving the ball as opposed to working the walk.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be able to hit at this clip, if he's going to hit over 300, 400, and give you basically an extra base hit every game, I don't think that Rhys Hoskins is going to be hanging around in the 2-hole much longer. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes. In theory, the idea is he's like a 260 hitter, has some pop, but he's going to have that on-base percentage in the high 3s because of the ability to work walks. I mean, we'll see what happens here. But, again, it's so early. It's such a small sample of games. I just don't think we can go crazy. But when you consider how much of a momentum player that Rhys Hoskins is, if you said there was one guy on this team that had to get off to a good start, to me, it's Rhys Hoskins, because you've seen over the last 3 years, when he's going well, he's unstoppable. And when it's not going well, he's a nightmare.
Which means it worries me for what could be coming.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, it's certainly an encouraging start for him.
It is. And that's encouraging too, Bob, because the rest of the team has been ice cold. It's him, it's DD hitting over 300 and one other guy, JT Realmuto. The rest of the team is really struggling, and yet here they are, and we don't anticipate that happen. But Alec Bohm is a guy that I want to get your thoughts on because the average isn't great, the numbers aren't great, but I feel like the home run that he hit the other day, that was maybe the most beautiful swing that you could put on a ball. He drove it out, so it shows you that he has the power, but he does everything. And he's a guy that I think Hoskins and Bohm are really the keys wrapped around Harper.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. We talk about Alec Bohm, and, one of the things that I've said, other people have said, I don't know that he's a 30-plus homer guy, but then you watch that swing the other day, it came on Wednesday, and you say, well, he certainly has the pop, and he certainly has the strength, so what's stopping him from being a 25 or 30 homer guy? And I think it just kind of comes back to the swing path and his approach at the plate and not always looking to elevate and drive the baseball, over the fence. Talking about taking what's given to him, tries to cut down on strikeouts with 2 strikes, especially he shortens up. And I think that that's maybe what prevents those numbers from coming to fruition at this point in his career. But when you just talk about raw power and the ability, I think that Alec Bohm can be a 30 home run guy for this team eventually. Again, we've talked about him numerous times. I'm just so super impressed with the approach at the plate. Talk about him being a little bit of a throwback, just willing to take what's there. And that's not something that a lot of hitters are willing to do. And I'm not really worried about those numbers whatsoever right now. I know the OPS is below 700. Give it time. It'll come up. I don't think you have anything to worry about with him.
And he's clutch. He hits in big moments. He's my favorite player in baseball, I think, right now.
Really?
I love him.
Listen, I love the guy, and I actually think that he's probably destined to be this team's cleanup hitter eventually. I think it's actually going to trend in that direction by the time we get to midseason.
Bob, give me your evaluation of what you're seeing from Nola? I mean, he gets a 4-0 lead, and there's a lot of people. Kevin Cooney was on with us yesterday, and he said he's not their number one, he's their number 3.
Wow. I didn't know that Kevin was such a takesman. That is a strong take.
I had flames coming out of the screen.
Oh, man.
He said
Kevin
he would go with Wheeler, Eflin, Nola.
Listen, I love Kevin, and I respect his opinion immensely. I still think that game in, game out, when it's all said and done, Aaron Nola is going to have the best stat line on this team. I know Zach Wheeler actually probably outpitched Aaron Nola last year, but for me, I need to see Zach Wheeler do it a little bit more consistently. As good as he was in the first game, 7 innings, 1 hit, 10 strikeouts. We'll see him again tonight. We'll see what happens. I still just think that Aaron Nola has the best feel for pitching, that has the plus curveball. When he's on with the fastball and can locate it, I just think that he's the more dominant pitcher. But yeah, no, I get the argument for it. I mean, they could be flipping 1A, 1B for the majority of the season. Who knows?
Real quick, we got about a minute and a half here. We talked about the bullpen at the top, but overall, do you see it's Neris, Alvarado? Who's that other guy? Who's the guy he trusts? I know it's very early, but if you're in like that 7th inning, you need that. Is it Brogdon? Is it Bradley? Who's that third kind of, or is there somebody I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in the season, I think it's Neris, Alvarado, Bradley, because of the stature and the money and the reputation and the experience. But I would not be stunned, and we've talked about him as well. I've told you on the show that I'm a huge Connor Brogdon guy. I really believe in him. I said that I could see a scenario if Hector Neris were to falter, that Connor Brogdon could be this team's closer come July. So for me, I think that Bradley and Connor Brogdon are kind of right neck and neck in terms of having Joe Girardi's trust. You probably defer to Bradley at this point just because of the experience.
It's Wheeler, Morton tonight. I would have liked them to try to take a flyer on Morton, by the way.
That would have been nice. Yeah, I mean,
Eflin, Anderson, and more Smiley. So what do you got here this weekend?
I'm going to say that the Phillies ride the momentum here and get 2 out of 3. I don't know which games they win, but I think that they go down there and they win 2 out of 3. I see that the national audience is going to get treated to the headline matchup of Smiley and Moore on Sunday night. Yes. So that's a classic battle there.
Should be a good one. Good weekend. Wheeler, Morton, Eflin, Anderson, Moore, Smiley, Wankel, Gill. We're back on Monday. And make sure you follow him at Bob Wankel CB. Check out Crossing Broad. Listen to the podcast Crossed Up. And, of course, we'll be back on Monday with a look at the weekend. And the Phillies will be getting ready for a 4-game set with the Mets. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right, brother. I'll talk to you then.
He pitches.
Yeah, man. I'll talk to you then. Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, every Friday.